welcome everybody to Mann's Model Moments Midweek Model Meet. I see my Logitech webcam has once again decided that it can't work out what the background is like. Let's have a little look if I can fix that before we carry on. It's kind of there, I think, ish. Okay, we'll just have to go with that for the time being and see how we get on. Oh my god, also the camera has once again gone onto autofocus and isn't focusing. It's the most annoying thing in the world. There. Okay. Right, we're there. Only took 2 minutes of fiddling about. Oh god, look at this. Let's see if I can get some background illumination to sort some of that. Where's my background illumination gone? Make sure my... Well, that's made it worse somehow. Anyway, good evening everybody. It's good to see everybody. I see lots of familiar faces, well, names in the chat. Brett, Steve, Paul, Aubrey St. John. We've got Paul Dye. We've got John Christmas, good to see you. We've got Little Things Junkie. We've got Indy R1 Simon. We've got Doug Smith. We've got Brian. We've got John Alec. And we've got Adrian. I'm sure more people will pop in as we go, but I don't actually see the streaming numbers when I'm in OBS. It's only when I'm in StreamYard, and I'm not in StreamYard, so I don't know how many people. I'm oblivious to the number of people that are in the stream, but then it doesn't really affect what I do anyway. So there we go. So I don't have any particular agenda for tonight. So if there's any questions or comments you'd like to make, questions in capital letters, comment in capital letters, QQQ or CCC, just helps me pull out the oh, sorry, just looking at, because that was highlighted. It just helps me put it out of the chat. So, first question Brian has asked is, at some point this evening, would you please give us a progress update on the paint mixing webpage, and also, pretty please tell me a Tamiya mix for Humber 165. So, the paint mixer is live. The webpage has been going. If you're a channel member and don't have a login, you need to get on the Discord. You need to DM me with your email address, and I will add you to the server. If you give me your YouTube name as well, it helps me link it back to your membership, and then. But we can go through that tonight. The actual website itself. And I can do a mix for Humbrol 165 live for you. How about that? Let me just put up Humbrol 165 so that I don't forget it. What is Humbrol 165? Is that some sort of grey? Oh, medium sea grey. Humbrol medium sea grey. Okay. So that's one thing we can do. Right, it's this side, which is the side with the illumination. It should work. It's annoying when you set things up and they don't work as they are supposed to, but hey ho. How can I make that go again? Oh, there we go. So it needs to be that way. Let's see. Okay. I don't mind a few bees down in the corner. That seems to be a little bit better. So, Spoon Glue's here. Good to see you, Dave. Got a few more people coming in. Spoon Glue, question, Alex, feedback on airbrush cleaner. Where can I get more? From on my website. So mannsmodelmoments.com. You can get all of that. The paint reset is available in 250 mils now, because somebody asked for that capacity. I don't know whether they're drinking it or something, but the 100 mil is kind of the standard. It's available in 30, 100, or 250 mils. So yeah, it's available from the website. PG Westy, have you heard anything about Firestorm Armada? Remember you from the podcast? Wow. So this is a bit of a blast from the past, and funny you should mention that, because I was actually talking about this yesterday. So those of you who don't know, before Beyond the Box podcast, I had a podcast with my son called The Hub Systems, and the Hub Systems podcast was the podcast of Firestorm Armada, which I was the guardian of the rule set for at Spartan Games before it went under about 10 years ago. Actually based at Evercreech Junction, not far from where I live at the moment. Sorry, it's really distracting that my video is still not set up properly. It's gone on to bloody autofocus again. If anybody honestly knows how I can stop this happening in OBS, I would be most grateful. There we go. So Firestorm Armada is a space combat game. Those of you who know Warhammer 40k, there was Battlefleet Gothic back in the day. Games Workshop stopped supporting that a long time ago. And it was about 2011 when my son and I got into Firestorm Armada whilst looking for a space combat game for our Warhammer 40k game. So it's a tabletop game, strategy game, based in on starships blowing each other up. That's basically it. Spartan Games went under. The guy whose company it was very creative, but he wasn't a good business person, and he wasn't good at letting go. So he didn't delegate activities. And they took on the Halo franchise. And Microsoft obviously require like a 5-figure licensing fee plus a cut of all the profits, and that was basically the financial doom of the company. War Cradle, so some of you may know War Cradle, purchased the IP, all of the molds and everything that was there, and then they've done nothing with it. They did some initial stuff, and then they just dropped off. So I actually, because I wrote the rules, you can't copyright rules, interestingly enough, continued developing the rule set, and I was going to launch a Kickstarter actually this year for the renewed game. That bloody camera has done it again, hasn't it? It's going to drive me to distraction. Okay, good. I don't know if it's bothering anybody else, but it bothers the hell out of me. So back in 2021, I think it was, I actually got a 3D artist working in Blender to make some new ships for me, some starships, so that I had my own like models that could be 3D printed, that I could then cast and sell the STLs, and kickstart this whole thing. I wrote a massive spreadsheet rebalancing the rules and stuff, and then Russia invaded Ukraine. Unfortunately, my sculptor was based in Russia, of all places, and of course I couldn't pay him because PayPal was frozen for Russia, so it all got to a bit of a hiatus, and I've kind of been working in the background until last 2 weeks ago, when a guy walked into my shop who is a sculptor based fairly locally, and we got chatting, and we know some similar people, and we got talking about Firestorm Armada, so we might be be able to work that. So he's done some starship designs in the past, very much like the work of Chris Foss, if you know Chris Foss, and all those sorts of artists from the 70s and 80s that did artwork for the fronts of like all the big sci-fi writers like Asimov and Chris Foss and Ben Bova and Larry Niven and all that kind of crowd. So he's going to do some artwork designs for me, and we can maybe get that all kickstarted back. So now, obviously, I can't use the Firestorm Armada name. Warcradle apparently are doing something different, but it's a completely different game from the old one. So as mine should be the spiritual ancestor, if not in name. So yeah, that's still ongoing. That's one of my side projects till I got distracted. Right, let's have a little look. Doug says, love that shirt. Yes, the elements required to deal with stupidity. Sulfur, argon, calcium, and samarium. Yeah, I do like my geeky science t-shirts. It has to be said. Okay, a few more people popping in saying hello. Good evening to you all. Scale Model Apprentice is right in the middle of moving. You have my sympathies. Hello, Alex and company. Anyone seen the video clips on Instagram showing exquisite snap-together aircraft in 1/10 and 1/12 scale? Too good to be true? Maybe AI generated? I've not seen them, so I can't really comment on them, but that sounds like AI. So, yeah, not sure. Speaking of AI, now obviously I did the video, the Tuesday talk yesterday on Hornby and Airfix and their use of AI and the nature of their recent advertising campaign, which I think just shows their mindset, as I explained in the video. I mean, the actual ads themselves, some people say, oh, you're grumpy old git, It's like, no, it's just like, one of them might have been like vaguely humorous, yeah, caught at the right time, but just this constant barrage of 12-year-old puerile stuff is just like, oh God, come on, give it a rest. But it's not that so much, as I said, it's what that shows you about the mindset of the people pushing the ad campaign, what they think you and I are. The sort of people that appeals to. Really noisy helicopter going over. Apologies for that. I'll take a drink while that's happening. Thanks for that. So yeah, it really shows the disconnect between these people in the Transformer team and the modelling community. And they posted, I think it was on Facebook. Might have been X. Basically a thing today saying, oh, thank you for all the engagement. This was the most successful ad campaign we ever did. And it had like a stug, which Airfix don't currently produce, with Taylor Swift, saying they've got more engagement than any other ad campaign. I'm calling BS on that for a start. How can you trust a company that lied about reviews on funerals, of all things? And even if that's true, engagement, as Jaguar should know, does not equal revenue or sales. Because if you think about this, again, I'm going to go businessy here. An ad campaign is for several different things, right? And they can be targeted for different things. The first is awareness. Airfix does not need awareness. That's the last thing Airfix needs. Everybody is aware of Airfix. Airfix is to modelling as Hoover is to vacuuming, right? It's synonymous. Lay people understand Airfix, so there's no need for awareness, right? So the other thing is, okay, that's of the brand. There is awareness of products. We've not seen any of that since the Transformer team started. Releases of products and things, quite the opposite. And the other thing, of course, is to convince people who are aware of you to buy your product rather than another one. Those are the three kind of main thrusts of advertising, right? Awareness of brand, awareness of product, and compelling sales argument. What of those have they achieved? So the last one is really about, so the first two are about awareness, are about getting new markets, getting new people aware of your product. The third one is conversion. So you're converting people being aware of the product to people actually buying your product. Now, if you're not doing the first two, right, the only thing that those adverts are doing is converting sales. And if, as with this ad campaign, you're putting an advert to a group of people who are already aware of you, who are already buying from you, and who don't like your adverts, what it's actually going to do is reduce your conversion rate. So the first two remain constant, the third one goes down. It's a negative effect. Now, anybody who doesn't understand that shouldn't be in business at all. I'll let you draw the conclusions as to whether those people do or not, but holy God. Having been in, I've been in commercial, right, in sales. I say commercial because if you say you've been in sales, people instantly assume you're like a used car salesman or like door-to-door window salesman. But I've been in commercial, right, for nigh on 30 years. Well, I have for 30 years. I started as a salesperson, as a sales rep, going out, in my car to, it's pharmaceutical companies and hospitals. I was selling analytical equipment, scientific stuff. But at the end of the day, people buy from people. That's the mantra of sales, right? It's about relationships. It's about engaging people. It's about understanding what they need and meeting that need, right? And if you fail in that, you get a bad rep. You get a bad reputation. People don't buy from you. If you get a good reputation, you help people out. You get a good reputation, people recommend you, and it snowballs, right? It's simple, right? And both types of sales have been present in the world, right? Everybody knows about, bad sales and bad salespeople and their methods and, all that kind of stuff. And people also know about good sales, people you do recommend, shops and things. So it's really, really grating when I see a company not doing that, doing all the things wrong when it's so easy in principle. It just needs good execution, and it's painful to see when it's being messed up like that. Hey ho. So that banging was Maria trying to close the patio door. I think both of them were open, and she's not used to closing both of them. So, is that out of focus again, or is that me? I'm paranoid about it now. So, anyone seen the work of Patrick Woodruff in the context of book covers et al? Oh, let's have a look. Let me have a little look, see if I can see. I always like. Was it Angus McKee as well? Also did artwork. I love that kind of style. The Chris Foss, Angus McKee, those kind of quite precise, fantastical illustrations. So what was his name? Patrick Woodruff. Okay, yeah. I've seen this kind of stuff before. So just for those of you, let me show you the screen. So this one here, It's gone to Pinterest. I don't like Pinterest as a site. It's annoying. Let's try images. Yeah. Yeah, so familiar with this. Not my favourite style, I must say. So for those of you who aren't aware of Chris Foss, if I can spell Foss, good grief, it's this sort of stuff. So these kind of quite bright and quite unusual in a lot of the way that he depicts stuff, but very technically, clean, quite unusual, quite bright colours sometimes. So yeah, that's Chris Foss. I think it's Angus McKee. My typing skill today is... Yeah, here we go. This is Angus McKee. Quite similar in a lot of ways. Like this sort of stuff. He did both of... So a lot of these appear in the Terran Trade Authority books from the late 70s, early 80s. This sort of stuff. I loved this as a kid, this sort of style. And I suppose, still do. Right, so let me go back. Where were we? People saying hello, that's all good. Mark from Montana said, I used to watch more than a lot of history-themed videos on YouTube. Now with AI slop, I shy away. I feel sorry for the real folks who work hard to produce. Yeah. The thing is, it's pretty easy to spot an AI history video now. There's certain phraseology. Maria can't, but I find I can. Within the first few sentences, I can tell if it's an AI script or not. There's just certain phraseology and the way that they put together exposition and stuff, which is, it's almost like false engagement. It rings as hollow. And yeah, I won't engage with any of that. If I know it's AI, I'll click away. Principally because I want to send that message to the algorithm. It's like, no, if you're going to give me AI slop, I'm going to go away from it. Just give me human stuff. The Little Things Junkie question, can you tell us what the Transformer team is? What is their publicly stated purpose, if indeed they have one? I assume they have responsibilities for all of Hornby's brands. I can't tell you what their stated objectives are. I can tell you who some of them are. This is all publicly available information. Let me... hobbies. Bear with me. Let's see. No, that's not what I wanted. People. So if I come back to the screen here, so this is obviously LinkedIn, so you can see people at Hornby Hobbies. So Kavita Mal is one of them. So if you go to these people's profiles, you can see Transformation Lead, June 2026. For instance, Now head of growth and acquisition. And as you see, used to work for Dignity. 3 years at Dignity. And yeah, it's also, you can kind of keep up with their connections. So you can go through and look at a lot of these people who are part of this team. So because I'm an employer, I can also see things like this, open to work, which is never a good sign, is it? So I'm just going through just to, I'll recognise them when I see them. But it's a bit clunky, LinkedIn, isn't it? It's like a less efficient Facebook in many ways. I could go through and find them, but you get the point. They are 3 young women that are all people that are in the Transformer team, all with similar histories, nothing to do with anything in our industry, which in of itself is not not that it's not a red flag, but it's not exclusively bad, right? Sometimes it's good to get somebody in from a different industry to give a different perspective. But when you're like head of growth and acquisition at Hornby Hobbies, like a £12 million turnover company, when you're in your 20s, it's like, really? You've got the experience to do that? Really? In a retail space that you've got no experience on your CV of? I would question that as an employer, right? Bear in mind, the company I used to work for, right, and just to give you a bit of scope, right? So Hornby Hobby is about 12 million turnover. The company I used to work for, Thermo Fisher, that was the last big company I worked for. I went to a smaller sort of startup company as chief commercial officer during COVID, and then I went into consultancy. They're a $45 billion a year company, right? My personal revenue responsibility at Thermo Fisher was 100 million a year, right? So that gives you an idea. So almost 10 times what the Hornby Group together is. So, yeah, you know, and I wasn't given the responsibilities that person has. So, you know, big companies tend to be a little bit more careful, or let's say big successful companies tend to employ people that can do the job before they give them that responsibility, right? So there has to be some proof of that. So yeah, that's so I don't really know too much about the Transformer team other than some of the members of them and their experience, because it's all, I'd say, publicly available on LinkedIn. And you know, that's where you can draw the conclusions from their past experience and their current activities and the results that that's driving. I mean, ultimately, right, in business, you are judged, or should be, in successful companies, again, you should be judged on results, right? It doesn't really matter what you say in an interview if you, I mean, I had people come that joined my team and they, you know, I had some salespeople join, they didn't hit their targets, and after 6 months, we didn't renew their probation period. That's business, right? We had other salespeople who were extremely good and were promoted. You reward the good and you prune back the bad. Those that had been there for a while and, were not performing, went on performance improvement plans, you got them back up to speed and carried on. We supported people, we wanted them to be successful. But if someone's joined who isn't suitable or is taking the pee, you get them out. That's how business should work, right? It should be efficient in that way. You should, and not that you should just get rid of people, but quite often, we looked at, is this person in the right, and that's the benefit of a big company, right? Is this person in the right position? Because they're a good person, but they don't seem to be working in this role. Is there a role elsewhere in the organisation that they would fit in better, right? Because you want to retain talent. Recruiting is enormously expensive, right? Interviewing, time is the main thing. It takes a lot of time. Because even when you get somebody on board, the first 3 to 6 months of them being on board, they're not doing anything. They're not generating revenue, which is why it's astonishing that these people have been there less than 3 months and they've managed to F things up so much. Because normally you're just learning the ropes, you're learning the basics. You're getting your laptop and your phone and you're learning company procedures and what font you should be using and the approved stuff and what systems you use, all of that stuff, and just getting to know your customers and all that sort of thing, and then you actually let out into the wild, if you like, to do something useful after that sort of 3 to 6 month time period, depending on what sort of industry it is. So yeah, who knows? That Twitter account you shared on your last video made fun of that Taylor Swift Facebook post. Yeah, well, it's AI fix, isn't it? It's a parody account. And yeah, I think it should be, if you get the opportunity to share it more. I think they should be parodied. They should be mocked if they are going to continue on with this. Let's have a little look. Oh, hi Moss, I didn't see you pop in. Charlotte O'Shea, Olivia Smith. Yeah, those are a couple of the others in the Transformer team. Here we go. Head of Consumer Experience. Here we go. Head of Consumer Experience. No, that's not what I wanted to do. Hornby Hobbies, Marketing Campaign Manager, Dignity Group, full-time, 2 years, 5 months. Relationship Marketing Manager and Office Manager. That's the experience, right? Transformation Manager, present. So part of the transformation team and head of consumer experience. So probably one of the people that is most directly responsible for the current disasters that are coming out. And Charlotte O'Shea, there we go. Head of Innovation. It's always a bit of a red flag when you've got that sort of title. Castlenow Group, full-time. And interestingly, she did appear to have, the last time I looked, she had a Hornby Hobbies bit in her bio as well, which she seems to have removed. It's interesting. So yeah, obviously lots of experience in this field. Head of Growth and Acquisition in the Cambium Group, founder and CEO Rock My Wedding Limited, and Senior Account Manager at Epix. Yeah, There we go. That was your part of, at least, your Transformer team at Hornby Hobbies. They certainly are transforming it. Not in the way that we need. Paul Dye says, less experience. Does this mean Hornby are doing things on the cheap, or that nobody with anyone experience will touch them with a barge pole? So, if you saw something in common with all those people, they either work for Castle now or the Phoenix Asset Management Company. Phoenix Asset Management Partners, who own the Hornby Hobbies Group. So these are people that are already being paid by Phoenix Asset Management. So they're just porting existing people from existing businesses in. So it's no extra money to them. So they don't add to the cost of the business. This is a common trick with big investment groups. Like, you move around assets that you already have. You get rid of people who know what they're talking about in there because they are expensive and they add to the balance sheet negatively, and put your own people in who already have salaries. There you go. Yeah, the Edmund 30 said, afraid to say I've just started thinking positively Airfix again. And this is the really sad thing, right, is that Airfix, and I've said this many times, Airfix were doing great, right? Dale, leading that team of really good people, were doing good stuff. The Saracen is actually fantastic. I haven't built it yet, but it looks better than the Stalwart. All of those bits that I mentioned, all this in the video review. Obviously all of that belongs to Dale's era. Basically everything that's being done at the moment is still products of Dale's era. The stuff they've been in, just got their feet under the table. As I said, they wouldn't have even been through onboarding in a proper company, let's call it. No company I've ever worked for would have allowed somebody to make those sorts of changes in that short a time. And I've worked for big umbrella corporations. I used to work for a corporation called the Danaher Corporation. You will probably not have heard of it. I think I've mentioned it before. There were less than 200 card-carrying Danaher employees worldwide. But I can guarantee you will have all used Danaher technology, but you won't have known it because they operate vertically. So all of the companies that they own, they keep their own name, they have to be profitable and all that. One of them is a company called Gilbarca Vida Root. They own pay-at-pump technology. So if you've used pay-at-pump, you have used Danaher technology, right? So I'm very used to that big, corporate umbrella corporation with lots of vertical operated companies. And porting people over is common. I was actually ported over from a company that they bought and they downsized a lot of stuff in it. And I actually moved across to another existing company they had to sort out some stuff there. Now, I went over, but then I had to learn the operating mechanisms of that company before I started doing radical stuff. Right? Even in the same group, which is why this is so bizarre, right? Oh yeah, so Moss is just making that point I just made. Probably made it before me because of the time delay. Yeah, I did. About they work for Castle now, so there's no extra cost there. There's oxygen that's better qualified. There's a good rundown video on how AI channels are working together to create a myth that German flak gunners had the most losses of any job in World War II. Yeah, so this is it's a slightly related, or it is related, but it's one of those things that at model shows now, I generally don't buy kits. I might if there's something that super rare that I want, or I've got a specific thing in mind, but I generally don't. Like at Telford last year, I think I might have bought a kit. I'm not quite sure. I don't think I did actually. But the main thing I buy are books. Now the thing is with books, printed material. So firstly, people thought that books were dead because everything's on the internet. You can find much more there and stuff. And that, I think, was initially true. But now, if you look at Google, which used to be the king of search engines, it's now just a sponsored ad trap. you have to sift through sponsored results, and then you get stuff which is all the same. You see the same images and things. It's actually quite difficult to find diversity in things like images of whatever you want to look at. And now you've got the problem of like, well, is that real? Is that a real World War II photo? Or is it AI? You don't have that issue with a book, because books, especially books that were published in the last 30, 40 years, they had to be peer reviewed, they had to go through a publisher and editors and all that kind of stuff. So they're verified, They were still wrong in a lot of cases, but the photographs and stuff in them are correct. Research obviously come to light that, okay, the black and white interpretation of this being yellow is actually red, in a Luftwaffe plane or something. But the base material, those photos and stuff, they're closer to the source in time, and they're verified. So you can't alter by AI an image put in a book in 1999. So for me, I think the advantage of physical printed media is massive in terms of research. Yes, it takes up room and stuff, but it's also really interesting, and you read around the subject. And I also believe in physical media for films and things, because if you've got it online streaming, yeah, it's available at the touch of a button and things if your internet's working. And if like somebody decides that something is offensive in it, they can take it out or not show it. If you've got a DVD, as long as you keep care of it, it's good. Head of innovation means coming in and changing everything that made the brand great in the first place. Yeah, it's often the case. Changing things for change's sake. If you've come in and made so many changes so quickly without understanding how the business works, which you can't know how a business works in a couple of weeks. Maybe if you've been in the industry for a very long time, or you come from a similar company. If a manager that had been in Revell for 5 years came over to Airfix, yeah, okay, I get that. A 20 or 30-year-old from an asset management group or a funeral company, give me a break. Moss says, comment, why did the JU-52 not get any push, but the crappy old tooling Robin Hood stuff is being pushed to the hilt? Yeah, I mean, it's... we don't know why, right? But it is mystifying, The JU-52, which the only problem I had with it, really, before it was released, was the price point. I thought was a little rich. And when they announced the Canberra at a the Canberra's like $29.99, and the JU-52 is $41.99. And you can say, oh, it's got the interior and all that, and it's like, yeah, but how many people are really gonna want to do all that interior? Or another way of putting it is, what value does that add to the kit for most modelers? Yes, it might for a certain section, but does that warrant a £10 differential in price from two aircraft that are, roughly the same size? And it's just. Having said that, they did it. It looked great. I haven't done my review on it. There will be a review coming out tomorrow. It'll be a little bit different. I won't spoil the surprise for you all. Let's say I followed Airfix's direction. So if Airfix wants to portray us in a certain light, then I thought I would stray from my normal review and give Hornby the JU-52 review it deserves. Let's say that. I hope you all watch it and enjoy it. But yeah, from what I hear, I haven't actually looked in my box yet, which may give you a clue as to how I'm doing a review on it. but I believe it's very good. You know, but why didn't they push that? It's a brand new tool. I mean, the Sheriff of Nottingham stuff. I mean, for a starter, the actual figures aren't even kits. What they're pushing at the moment are the figures. It's not even the Sherwood Forest Castle and the Roman fort. These are just the figures. So they're vinyl figures. I mean, to be honest, I don't even know who buys those vinyl figures. But yeah, bizarre. The ethics ship is rapidly being steered away from military in readiness for business sell-off. So this is the thing, right? Because the way that they're going about things does look very much like trying to strip. I mean, it won't work. I can kind of fairly confidently predict. Because what they're trying to do is reduce the cost base to make the company look more profitable. But the thing is, they have so much debt, they need to increase baseline revenue to be able to balance those books. So going on the way they're going, if they're going to actually get reduced revenue because they piss off the existing customer base, these ads aren't going to add anybody to the Airfix customer base. I can guarantee that. If they do, I'd be absolutely astonished. Then, so I believe their net customers are going to, contract. The conversion will drop. Net revenue drops. Yes, costs are lower, but that equation kind of then balances. So they've still got the big debt. It's not being paid off. So then you go to a seller and say, okay, we'd like to sell this. And they're just like, yeah, but now you've got a brand. We're pushing non-military stuff. Yeah, but the value of Airfix is not in non-military stuff. Nobody's going to pay whatever price they're asking for it because, they've got a nice range of Robin and his merry men. It's absolutely dumb. And Sadmos is the JU-52 is a good kit. Yeah, exactly. This is the problem, right? Because the Saracen, for me, Airfix, the way that it was being steered into that Cold War, especially the Cold War vehicles. I mean, with Accurate Miniatures, turning off the tap this year. What a perfect time to step in with an injection molded. That Saracen's got a full interior. Nice, easy to build range of 1/35 scale Cold War armor. There was so much that's possible there. The whole range of 1950s to 1980s trucks that the British Army used. It was a single base. Was it the Q? I don't know my British trucks, but there was a guy came in the shop actually, came out of the army this year, and he said, I want to make everything that I drove and was in charge of in my time in the army. And he gave me a list, and of the list, the Ferret was one, the Stalwart, and a whole load of all this stuff, like types of Land Rovers and things. And I was just like, yeah, most of this stuff you could have got like last year, because it's all the stuff that Accurate Miniatures did. Airfix could have just taken up the mantle, and that would have been their 1/35th scale timeline for the next few years, But no, the flowers. If they're looking at non-military and expanding into a different type of customer base, I mean, there was a project lined up. All you need to, it's like putting a ball in front of the goal. All you got to do is just pop it in. It's almost across the line. And it's like, no, we're going to take that ball away now. We don't want to play that. It's just, I don't know, mad. So Moss has got sunburn. Relax. Make sure you moisturise. Get plenty of moisturiser on it. So let's have a little look going down. So Master just talking about which series the different Canberra and JU52 are, which I get, and yeah, 171 parts versus 218 isn't a huge difference. And at the end of the day, Airfix gets to decide which series it is, right? So I just think it's because people don't care about the series, right? They don't care about the exact part count. People look at it, and people looked at it back in January, and a lot of people were really happy, and a lot of people were like, "Oh, great! How much?" When they found out, it's like, "Ooh, that's a bitter pill to swallow." Whereas if it had been even $39.99, that psychological, bit below, I think it would have got more traction. Because what you want to do in any, again, now I'm going back to because the salesperson coming at me, the value proposition, right? It's that what are you getting versus the price, and you have to get into that comfort zone of, okay, I'm prepared to pay that for that. And that changes. It's different for different people. But what you want, and price is a crude lever, but the more you increase your product, yeah, how it appears in people's eyes, the more you can push your price. But the more you push your price up to a certain point, is the number of customers that will buy it will then start to tail off. So you've got to try and find that sweet spot. So this is why I think vintage classics are actually pretty good, because the value proposition of those is like down here, but the price is also down here for most of them. When it starts to creep up, people are like, do I buy that with a nostalgia build? And then if you would have had 1,000 customers and now you've only got 750, is it worth putting that price up? Because if you put it down a little bit, you might get 1,000, and that 250 times that makes actually extra profit. So it's a difficult one. And that's a lot of, pricing strategy and sales and all that kind of stuff. Let me have a little look. Scrolling down. Yeah, we're not going to get a Saladin. I'm really not sure what we're going to get, if anything, next year. If Hornby survives till next year, I'm still not convinced that's a certainty. Yeah, aloe vera is really good. Boric acid cream I've never heard as. Where do you get boric acid cream? You have to let us know, John. Is that only available in the States? I've just never heard of that before as a thing. Question: do you think Dale will help to turn Hella back into a big player in the UK? I really hope so. I mean, so Glow2B are a German distribution company, basically at heart, but they've invested into Hella. Now we've got 2 new tools out of them since then, and it's really the first 2 new tools we've seen for a while, because Hella were doing bugger all before. Now, I believe the Peugeot 205 was a good kit. I haven't seen it. It's just cars are not a huge seller. So people will often, look at the distribution of models. If you go to ScaleMates and look at the relative proportion of aircraft, armour, ships, cars, and sci-fi, the number of tools there, it's actually a pretty good representation of gross sales. It's a good approximation, right? Aircraft are number 1, armour is number 2, and then you get down into cars, naval, sci-fi, right? Figures are sort of in amongst, mostly in the 1/35th scale armour side. So to get a fairly obscure French car from the 80s and 90s into the shop, it's just not worth it unless somebody's really interested, in that subject, because it will sit on the shelf forever, which isn't what you want in a business. You want turnover, right? The Hawkeye, similar, right? So I think there were very odd choices. I think a lot of what Dale can bring, apart from his vast experience of the industry, because he went to all the shows, he knows a lot of people, he knows creators, and he's a really affable guy. I think he can make a lot of connections. He'll be able to, oh, I know a guy, if they want to do something particularly, he'll know the Edward guys, for instance, if they want to do resin and all that kind of stuff. Apart from all of that industry knowledge, which is something he could bring straight away, unlike the Transformer team, what he also has is that a lot of research that was done under Hornby, he has all that knowledge in his head. So he'll be able to make, I think, better decisions on where they invest that money. So to get better returns. And better returns they get, the more they can reinvest. So I think we will see... I mean, I don't know how many more tools. I don't think that's going to change. But obviously they got Dale knowing his experience, and they value that and want him to be directing that. So it would be very odd if we don't see Hella start to make some good stuff now, right? I think it will appeal to more of a broadly European market, which is why I thought the Hawkeye was an odd choice for them. And to be honest, the 205, yes, they have a very strong French customer base, but they're based in Europe, so they should try and leverage that European business a bit more because they got free trade in there, unlike us. So it'll be really interesting to see what Dale does. I've got a certain fondness for old Hella kits. I mean, some of them weren't very good, but they did some really unusual subjects, and it's a bit like a Taleri, in the same way as Airfix, actually, if you look back at it. And if Dale can do even a tenth of the transformation at Hella that he did with, he didn't originate the transformation at Hornby, but he certainly, took the ball, ran with it, and really, pushed it. So if he can do a tenth of what he did at Airfix at Hella, then I think we're in for some interesting stuff. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. Comment from the Little Things Junkie. If the weird ad campaign really is a success, I'm sure they'll want to repeat it, won't they? If they don't repeat it, I guess it will know it wasn't such a hit as they claim it to be. What can I do as a punishment if I'm wrong? Because I'm prepared to do that. I'm prepared to put my money where my mouth is, as it were. It wasn't a success. They're absolute bullshitters. Let's face it. It might have created more engagement than they've ever had before, if they mean that, people post rage baiting on Facebook as engagement. But as I mentioned before, that doesn't equal dollars. And at the end of the day, cash is king in business. If they're not making the money, it's a failure, right? I can guarantee, I can't because I don't have any way to guarantee it, but I'm 100% certain it will shrink their revenue, right? Now, if I'm wrong, God, this bloody thing. If I'm wrong, what can I do? I don't know how we would test it, really. I don't know. Another kimono stream. How about... suggest what I should do. Okay, I'm prepared to do something fairly horrible for myself if I'm wrong, knowing that I'm not. Hang on, let me try and sort out this bloody webcam. It's the bane of my life. It's a Logitech 920, for God's sake. It should work. Ah, dear. The light hasn't changed that much in this room. Okay, I'm afraid you'll have to deal with that. No, swarms of bees. maybe I shouldn't have messed around with the filter. I tell you what, let's just turn the bloody chroma key off, right? You just have green background. Sod it. Can't be dealing with it. So yeah, it's not a success. Let's not. They're not fooling anybody. If they want to tell themselves that's fine. But I mean, it's just not credible, right? Again, anybody who's in business, who's been in this sort of business, in any business dealing with money, you know, with sales and revenue, you know, whether you're an accountant or a manager or a salesperson or stuff, you know, ad campaign success isn't judged in a couple of weeks, right? It takes time to get that through the funnel, the sales funnel, you know, from getting initial interest through purchase, revenue realized, and all that kind of stuff. You won't have the results of that for at least a month, because you've got to get through your actuals and stuff and clear it with all of your costs and things. So anybody with brain one in business knows that what they posted today was bullshit. And excuse my language, but it really is bullshit. Now, if they're judging it as engagement, as clicks, as reactions, they're idiots. I'm sorry, but that is not the way to measure the success of an ad campaign. And anybody at Jaguar will tell you that. Hasegawa. So as I mentioned, you know, I've done this various bits on the Machine and Krieger kits, and I'm going to be stocking them because I asked and a few people said yes, and I'm like, you know what, I'm going to have them in the shop because they're unusual and I like them. So, and I own the business, so I can make that executive decision. So Hasegawa are re-releasing a whole bunch of stuff. I wish they'd released the bloody egg planes that they said they would, but I mean, that's by the by. But yeah, they're releasing a ton of stuff, and Hasegawa kits do stand up. Now, some of the older stuff, especially in 72nd scale, the cockpit is a bit empty. It's not so much empty; it's simple. So actually, if you want a very simple build, which actually is quite nicely, you know, engraved and things, they're ideal for that sort of fairly quick. If you want to concentrate more on the painting side, but because they've been out forever, because they don't tool an awful lot. They do a couple of new tools a year, and it's usually cars. There are enhancement kits for almost all of them. You know, they've been around forever. In fact, some of the enhancement kits, you know, the Edward kits aren't available anymore because they're that old. But I'm sure there will be, you know, 3D printed ones and stuff now that have replaced those. So you can cover a lot of their inadequacies. Also, they're really reasonable prices. Especially the 1/72nd scale stuff. The 1/48th and 1/32nd scale stuff can get a bit more expensive. The 1/32nd scale stuff, they were actually some of the early pioneers that stuck with the scale, so they've got some good stuff in that. But the 1/72nd scale stuff, you know, it's like around £10 will get you a 1/72nd scale, you know, Corsair or Crusader or whatever. So, and a decent one. Not maybe the best, but good, you know, and certainly good value for that. Okay, John. Yes, you can. So this is this. I can't know, boric acid cream. Any CVS, Walmart, etc. It's the acid. Okay, I'm going to have to look at that up. I mean, not that I try to get sunburned, but you know, having the old widow's peak, it does happen sometimes. It does tend to be the old forehead which gets it. You know, I suppose I could paint that white to reflect the blast. You know, much like they do in Down Under. Yeah, so Travis says, I still adore Hasegawa, even if they don't do new tool model military kits anymore. Yeah, they've, like I did, or I'm in the process of doing a Corsair 2, which is a 1980s mold, but you wouldn't guess it. It's their tooling is very crisp. Again, Japanese company thing, right? They take care of stuff. They build it. The Japanese are very much about legacy. They would be horrified at the Airfix stuff, right? A Japanese company would rather commit harakiri than do that. Okay, Paul Dye says, if you're wrong, you have to only build egg planes and tanks for the next 12 months. Deal. Deal. I mean, that would be a horrible punishment, right, for me. But deal. Nothing wrong with egg planes. Come on now, play fair. There's nothing wrong with them. They're just not for me. That's it. I have egg planes. The only egg planes I bloody have from Hasegawa that they delivered are the ones that people don't want. But no, not they don't want. They didn't pre-order. So here's a question from Carl. Will Hella Group or Revell buy Airfix this year? About the punishment, shave off your beard maybe. Oh, you wouldn't want to see that. Besides, I used to be, so all the time I was in business till about 2004, I was clean shaven, like every day. The 3S plan: a shave, shower. You can guess the other S. Every morning, suit on, off to work. Then I went to France and I didn't shave for the entire time I was there. I just thought 2 weeks, I'm just not going to. I'm sick of it every day. And when I shaved, I shaved all of this first and left a goatee. So I had a goatee for 5 years or so. And then when the sort of hipster thing happened and people were growing beards, I'm just like, you know what? I'm just going to let the rest of it grow and just keep it like this. So yeah, it wouldn't really be too much of a punishment for me. It'd be a hassle, but that's all. So, will Hella Group buy or Revell buy Airfix this year? I don't know. I think no. So Glow2B, I just don't think have the pockets for Airfix. And to be honest, I don't think. So look at why a group would buy Airfix, right? What would that give for Revell, or the Revell? Actually, another asset management company that owns Revell, but Revell Carrera. What would it add to their product lines? And to be honest, I think actually if Revell bought Airfix, it would be bad for modelling. And the reason I think that is because because I can think of a reason that if I was the owner of that group, I would buy Airfix, and it would be to remove competition, which isn't a good thing, right? Because it's like, oh, okay, you're not going to buy a 1/72nd scale Airfix Spitfire. You're going to buy a Revell one because we're going to remove the Airfix one from production. And companies have done that. Buying entire businesses for one or two products and then just canning the rest because they don't want them. They're not going to get rid of them because that would mean somebody else could do it and compete with them. So it's more valuable for them to just take them off the table. Right? You see it in all kinds of industries. This is not exclusive to the hobby industry at all. In fact, it's more common in other industries. I wouldn't like Revell to buy it, but I don't think they would because it would be an awful lot of money to do that. Right? It'd be a lot of money to have. They would pick and choose some stuff which they could sell in Revell boxes, the newer stuff. But that's a really expensive way of doing it, and a huge back catalogue that they've got to put somewhere or pay to store somewhere. I don't see that. I don't think Hella could, and I don't think Revell would. But who knows? Moss says Hornby won't sell Airfix. I believe they want to destroy the brand and relaunch it as a generic construction kit company. Ooh, let's hope not. Scale Model Apprentice says, it goes without saying that I won't be buying Airfix until they're sold or something similar. The recent crap was the final straw, especially after they tried to overcharge me. Oh, really? Oh, I didn't have to let us know about that. Scale Scale me to hell. Says, hate eggplanes, just a waste of time. So I don't really hate eggplanes. I just don't. They're just not for me. You know, I don't hate any model. You know, I mean, apart from the fact it's a thing, so it'd be a bit weird to hate it. But I don't see. I understand why people might want to do them, and I think for kids, great, knock yourself out. They're cheap. They're low part count, and they're fun. You know, it's not what I want from my models. Yeah. If I want to do something fun, there are plenty of other things I can do. So it's just not for me. I don't object to anybody else doing it. I put on a lot of show about hating eggplanes, but I don't really hate them. Although only having to do them for a year would probably drive me insane, more insane. On tariffs, about triple what it should have been. Oh gosh, that's bad. I see Airfix are promoting a 176 fuel truck labelled as new tool. Anybody know if this is true? I hope not, but anything's possible with the current AI, because AI doesn't know shit, right? It makes horrible mistakes. Moss, you did. I posted a pic on Discord of that email claiming it's new tooling. Really? Oh, okay. That is not good. I mean, how much further do they go before the Advertising Standards Agency gets complaints? They should. I mean, they're already in trouble at Dignity, right? Maybe that's another route we could take. Just to. Sorry, I'm just checking. Oh yeah, there we go. New tooling, and it's not. I mean, apart from anything, I think the AI ads that go out, the emails and stuff, are just really dull. Aside from the puerile humour, they're just the announcements they do, they're boring. I mean, really boring. Yeah, that's a shame. Hopefully no more enshittification in tonight's topics. Would you like a preview of my my JU52 review? Let's see if I can grab a still. Okay. This is going to be my JU52 unboxing review tomorrow. I might have used some AI in generating the review, but I feel that that's the review that Hornby deserve, right? So I hope you enjoy it. It's remember, it is tongue in cheek. I have to specify that, We'll see how it does, but we'll see how Chloe presents it. But yeah. Yeah. So Moss is saying the recent AI post didn't get as much engagement in a genuine post like "What's in your stash" or "What was your first kit?" Those had 800 to 1.6k likes. Yeah, I mean even those were pretty dull by Airfix standards, right? I mean, I feel bad now for, I thought Airfix were a little bit overzealous on their marketing and stuff. Because there was a lot, and it was all the time, and I kind of miss that now. It's like, it's like you don't realise what you got till it's gone, do you? I think there's a happy medium between the two extremes, right? The old Airfix stuff spaced out a little bit more, I think would have been kind of perfect. I think the current stuff is just, well, apart from the fact I don't see it because I don't use Facebook, right? I do have X and I do have Instagram. I still don't see it. So it's not terribly effective as an ad campaign, if a lot of people aren't seeing it. So if it's got 800 to 1,500 likes, that's not a huge percentage of the modelling population of the UK. Now remember, and this is the bit that gets me, if you look at the relative market sizes, the UK is not very big. Europe is huge. America isn't that small actually, but it's mainly cars. Well, cars are first, at least in America. They're slightly backwards from other demographics around the world. Japan is obviously massive as well. But the UK is not a massive part of that European number. So yeah, it's just very odd, the whole thing. But anyway, let's. Yeah, I think so. I mean, I said as much on the videos. I think what happened to you, Moss, was pretty disgusting, to be honest. Yeah, okay. And George, as he said, where is that ad campaign? I haven't seen an Airfix ad in months, which is the whole point, right? I hadn't actually seen any of these until they were raised on our YouTube Discord group. And I was just like, oh, right. Bear in mind, I also get their trade emails. And their trade emails have gone right down. I mean, I get more from Hornby, which I've asked them not to send me, the Hornby, railway stuff, than I do from... In fact, I can't remember. When was the last time I had an Airfix one? Oh, they were doing some sell-off of some old crap that they had. Including... Right, get this. They did a trade sale, of Humbrol paints, but it was only certain colours. It was all the colours that don't sell. It's like, guys, we're not going to pay 20% less to just get rid of your excess stock that we've got anyway. It's like, come on. It really is. It does smack of desperation when you see stuff like that, and you just think it's just so obviously what's on the shelf. Okay, well, give an offer to the retailers on this. It's like, no, I think we're savvy enough to spot that, actually. Thanks very much. So, sorry, Little Things Junkie, your comment was held because it contains the word masturbator, I think. But if they are trying to appeal to the chronic masturbator market, if such a thing exists, and I don't think so, or at least not in our hobby space, they have seemingly overlooked the chronic masturbators already have a hobby. Yes, that's a very good point. But yeah, they've appeared on Facebook a lot. So Facebook seems to be the target, which again, as I said in the video, kind of shows their mindset, right? It's like they think it's like Facebook is the remit of the old sad wanker. Yeah. I mean, yeah, Moss, I mean, you can tell, you can actually identify the point in time if you didn't know otherwise, and somebody gave you all of the adverts that Airfix have done, show me on this timeline where James Dunk left. It's like, was it here? It's like, you'd be within a week, I think, right? Because yeah, I mean the the trade stuff we used to get, um, it wasn't great, but at least it was relatively regular. Let's say that. Um, one of the okay, so two of the best companies for giving updates. Um, well, let's extend it to three. As a manufacturer, ICM. ICM always give advance notice of what they're doing, with PDF and all that stuff. The hobby company, who import Tamiya and ICM and Italeri, are really good at notification. Gauge Master are really good, very good actually. And actually Tiger Hobbies as well. Tiger Hobbies. Many of you may know Gary. Tiger Hobbies is at all the shows and stuff. They're exceptionally good at giving advance notification of like importing stuff and when things are going to be released and all that kind of thing. Now, if you notice, those are mostly wholesalers, not manufacturers. Revell aren't bad in terms of notification for trade, but actually it's easier to buy through wholesalers. For similar reasons, though not as bad as Hornby in terms of, they're a single manufacturer, and they have a relatively high, although not as high as Hornby, minimum order quantity, and so it's easier to go to a wholesaler and be able to pick up the Revell kits you want, along with some, Airfix kits and some scenery items from somewhere else and stuff, and make up a lower minimum order quantity, right? So yeah. George says, I guess I'm too inactive on Facebook. I don't get ads there, and no, I don't pay. I mean, there are ads almost everywhere these days. I think we just screen them out. I haven't noticed an ad on Facebook anytime I've been in, because the way I use Facebook, I go in, I post a notification for a video or a stream or whatever, and then I leave. Occasionally, I'll look at my notifications and it will say so-and-so sent you a friend request, accept, or reject if it's, some guy in India who has no common friends. It's like, no, I'm not, I'm not accepting your friend request. I have no idea who you are. And very rarely I'll get a message on Facebook. That's the only interaction I have. And the message could be from a relative, because my relatives are kind of all over the country. So it's a way that they keep in touch. But that's it. Same with Instagram and X. I don't spend time on them. And they are all quite, I think, individual platforms. I think there's a lot of people that don't use all of those. Sort of, if there's a Venn diagram of each of these social media pieces, I think the one that most people use is YouTube, because it provides videos, people watch the videos, and there's other stuff on there, and there's adverts embedded in those if you don't pay for premium. Whereas the other ones all kind of Instagram, it's not the sort of thing that a lot of people go on to post photos of yourself, unless, I don't know, they're generational and character types that use these different social media bits, right? I'm guessing most people here don't use TikTok, right? Because it's more of a Gen Z, Gen Alpha platform, right? It's bell-shaped distribution curves and all of that, but yeah. Okay, just having a look down through the comments. Doop, 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 doop. I think up to date. So, right, that was just covering general feeling about Airfix. I don't think we've covered any other topic really. So, a few things that are going on. Over the past few days, I've been working on the surface modulation video that I kind of talked about when I did the video about surface modulation. A lot of people asked, could you actually demonstrate that? So I've been doing a lot of that over the past couple of days, in addition to finishing the Chaffee build. So I wanted to build the Chaffee because I wanted to use it as an example for that. I've also built an M18 Hellcat that I was gifted half made, because it's based on the same chassis. I didn't realise it was Chaffee running gear and stuff. So it's quite nice to have that side-by-side comparison of a very similar vehicle with a couple of different modulation techniques applied to it. So I have been building up. One of the reasons I've not done a lot of build stuff, apart from the fact I got the Hampton, Costa Meteor and BF109 from Airfix still in the queue, is that I've been doing a lot of off-camera builds of a lot of 1/35th scale vehicles to do a lot of this modulation stuff on, because it's easy to see in 1/35th scale. Now, panel lining isn't so much on that, so I've got a couple of aircraft for panel lining and sort of marbling effects, to give you an idea of that. So I don't know when that will be finished, but a lot of the videos already shot for that. I've got a bit more to do over this week and weekend, but that will be coming sometime soon. Tomorrow I have my JU52 unboxing, as you will have had the sneak preview of one of the thumbnails. I don't know. I have no idea how that's going to go. It could just do nothing, or it could be okay. We will see. What else have I got? There's a couple of things we're doing as buddy builds. What is a P38J? I have no idea where that's going to come up. Another one is a BF109. So there's a whole group of us doing BF109s from Edward BF109s, or Avia S199s. That counts as well. So it's like different people doing the same kit, same base kit from the same manufacturer, in all their different ways. So, which I think is quite a neat thing, right? Because it shows that me or Moss or John Alec or Matt from Model Minutes or LPJ Models and stuff can all approach the same model, and it'll look different, And okay, we're doing, might be different variants and stuff. It's all the same base kit. A G to an E to whatever, they have the same base components and other different bits. So there'll be a whole series of videos coming out across various different channels for that. So that's a really nice collaboration. So working on that. What else is going on? Paint mixer. I am reminded. There we go. I remembered myself. That's quite an achievement, guys. Paint mixer. So let me show you. So this is live. I can't remember what version we're on. 4.2.8, I think. This is your Humbrol 165. Did you want it in Tamiya or ICM? I can't remember. So basically, the way this works, choose your paint range. I'm in advanced mode, as I only use it in advanced mode, really. You choose your target. I've narrowed this down, Humbrol 165. Select target, it'll pull your target there. Let's just reset that. So this is your spectral emission line. Greys tend to have this very boring flat line. As you would expect, they reflect everything pretty much evenly. You select the number of parts you want. Let's say we only want to mix a couple. And then you've got this, best in daylight or best overall. By default, this is in best overall. What that does is it tries to minimize metamerism. Now, what do I mean by that? That means it tries to match this spectral curve so that the paint mix that you've got will act the same as the target. So if you've got it in daylight, it will look good. If you've got it in tungsten light, it will look the same as the paint you're trying to replicate, right? Not that it won't look different, because paints do look different in different lights, but it will look different in the same way as the original. That's what you're looking for. And then you just click Calculate Mix, and it will mix your paints. And there we go. We've got a pretty much perfect match with 1 part XF12 and 1 part XF87. So a mix of 2 Japanese navy greys works out to be medium sea grey from Humbrol. Just see actually if there's a direct match for it. No, not really. That's 2.16 is noticeably different, whereas 0.5 is not. Ideally, you're looking for a value below 1 in your DE. So metamerism is low, so I can actually preview that under different lighting. You can see this is different lighting. So incandescent, fluorescent, and LED. This is the Humbrol paint, and you see it does look slightly different under fluorescent light. And then the mix also looks slightly different, but it looks slightly different in the same way. So it looks like there's 3 bars across here rather than the 6. What you don't want is it to have 6, because that means there's differences in different lights between the 2 colours. Now, don't worry if this looks darker or lighter than your target, because this will be the dried paint. Wet paint looks different from dried, and this is only an RGB representation of your actual colour. So this digital display is only indicative. It doesn't properly reflect this unless you have a properly balanced sRGB monitor, which costs usually thousands of dollars or pounds. It's only indicative. So don't worry about that. That is only a human interface device, as it were. Okay, there have been a few questions, so I'm going to have a little scroll back up. I do agree with John Alec as well about how YouTube Premium is completely worth it. I went Premium on Moss's recommendation, actually, because he said he went to Premium a while ago, and I've never looked back. I've never regretted it. I would rather cancel Netflix than cancel my YouTube Premium, to be honest. Question: what differences do you perceive in how people in different countries in the hobby present models or content here on YouTube? That's a good question. I'm not really sure about the differences in how things are presented. There are definitely differences in like subject preference and the style of modelling, which is one thing I think you'll notice in the tonal modulation video that I'm doing is what people prefer, because a lot of it is stylistic choice, right? It's not necessarily about what looks most realistic, it's about what you prefer. And there are some stylistic choices within tonal modulation that are trendy in certain areas, I want to say. That there's more of a certainly through time and also in location, like certain things are more common, right? So structural modulation, so where you are creating light and shade depending on like different panels and things, has been quite popular. So the ultimate extreme is like the Revell Halifax picture that they posted for the re-release of the kit. It's bloody awful, like really extreme. Like it looks like a checkerboard. So that checkerboard effect comes from that structural modulation done badly. It should be subtle, but that it's in no way really realistic. But it's very aesthetically appealing if it's done well. So that's quite common. It was certainly more common, or it was certainly very common a few years ago, and it continues to have its proponents. Much less common is directional tonal modulation. So, you know, where you're basically doing, although it is very, very common in miniature painting. So like zenithal highlighting I'm talking about, really, where the top of the model or top surfaces are lighter than darker undersurfaces. That's not done that much in a lot of areas of modelling, particularly aircraft. It's not done. AFV's done a bit more, but you will see the difference in the video when I show you the different things. It's like what I'm talking about now, like structural and tonal modulation from light and stuff. All sounds very grand and stuff. When you actually see it, it becomes a lot more relatable. It's like, okay, that's what he means. You know? So, which is why it's a video, not a talk. George says, so the advice is not to mix paints from different brands. No, it's not advice. You can't mix paints from different brands. Basically, there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes in the paint mixer, and it's all Casey does the maths behind this. I'm good at maths. I'm not that good at maths and coding specifically. So there's a lot of algorithmic stuff that goes on from a lot of paint ladders. So I've mentioned this before, but it's worth talking about. To get a paint for mixing in the app. So all the apps out there, apart from ours, use RGB, right? Which is crap. It's digital. It doesn't work. It doesn't relate to the real world. It'll give something sometimes which is close, and sometimes it won't be at all. And the thing is, it's because it's based on digital rather than spectral. So to get a single paint in the paint mixer, so say we've got to do this paint, right? Grey-green. The minimum requirement is you mix this with a reflector and an absorber, otherwise known as good old black and white, which are compatible with the series, in different proportions, and the minimum is 6, right? 6 different mixes. So 90% this, 70%, 50%, and so on. So you create a ladder of different mixes, and then for each of those, you use a drawdown bar, which is a thing that I have at the shop, not here. You put paint at the top here and use the drawdown bar, and you pull it down, and it forms a streak of paint of a defined thickness, like 100 microns or whatever, down here, and then you dry this. And obviously this is labelled. So you have a minimum of 6 of these cards for each paint, and then you take a measurement from the black and from the white and collate all those. So there's a minimum of 12 measurements, 12 physical spectral scans, so that's from 400 to 700 nanometers for every single paint, and that all goes in. And the reason you can't mix paints is because different paints react differently with absorbers and reflectors. So so it makes the maths like an order of magnitude higher. Now it might be something we manage to look at in the future, but that's what's behind it. Is there's a lot of physical, actual work and measurement that goes into the paint mixer, which is why it works basically and why it's accurate, because these have all been mixed so that it's not just based on theory, it's based on actual physical measurement of how paint interacts with the absorbent reflector. And that's at a minimum. So we usually do more than one measurement on these. So we'll do multiple mixes to make sure that, because some colours can be difficult. Let's say that. Won't go into the physics of it, but some are fairly robust. You can do two mixes and they'll be identical. The mixes. You do others, and the mixes will be quite different in the way they act. So you've got to be careful about the measurement. So we're constantly going in and iterating the data. So that's sometimes why if you do a mix that I did from a video before, you might get different numbers if you plug it into the current one, because the current one has better data. So it'll tighten that mix. So, it'll be better or worse depending on, how the data is. I mean, it won't be massively different, but we're talking about the tightness of the data, those standard deviations. It's probably too much maths, but that's how it works. And why you can't mix from different paint brands. Brian, you're more than welcome. As I say, anybody that is a channel member that doesn't have access to the paint mixer, you need to be sprue level or higher. Get in touch. If you're not on the Discord, go to the Discord. I'll make sure that the link is updated. There's a members only YouTube post on YouTube. Go and have a look at that. Get the Discord link. Come into the Discord server. There you'll see the paint. Ask for a role. The first thing you should do in the Discord server is ask for a role. Because then I can give you your supporter level, and that'll determine what you can see in the server. At sprue level, you'll be able to see the paint mixer thread, and then from there, DM me your email address. DM because then it's private, right? With your YouTube name, and then I can add you to the database for the, that controls access to the website, and then you can have a look and play with it. And that's it. Now, of course, if you are a channel member, you are also now part of the IPMS Mann's Model Moments virtual club. So that came through this week. So I'm really happy that that's come through. So I'm going to apply to have a stand at Telford. So we need to organise who wants to come as part of that. I don't know how many tickets I get. I think it's like 3 or something. So who wants to come in on that and be part of the setup of the stand and actually, display models and all that kind of stuff. And then obviously who can bring models and things, because we can't open it to everybody. We need to organise it a little bit. You can't just turn up with it. So we need to organise all of that. So that'll happen over the next couple of months or so. So that's really nice. That's really positive. It also means that I can host a show and be covered by the IPMS insurance. So obviously I've got Wincanton Hall just behind the shop. So I'm going to be looking to do that. I think it will be next year, because I think the organisation of it will probably take that. If I can get it before then sure. So if you've got ideas about when that would be good, that doesn't clash with other shows, is a good weekend and everything, again, please pop them in the Discord, or just as comments to this video if you're not a channel member, because I appreciate any input would be great. Okay, so that's all of that. St. John says, not a fan of the pre-shading fad. Makes paintwork pop and looks great, but not realistic at all, in my honest opinion, but each to their own. So, pre-shading is not unrealistic. It depends what pre-shading you're talking about, because pre-shading covers a lot of different techniques, right? Also, you can do all of those pre-shading techniques as part of the actual painting. A lot of people call it post-shading, but it's not really. It's when you're painting, it's doing the shading as you're painting. That's just shading. That would be called. Post shading is really the stuff you do after your paint is applied. You know, it's your washes and things. Doing like panel lines and stuff, it depends how they're done, whether it's quote unquote realistic or not. And again, it's not the pre-shading nature of it that's unrealistic. It's how it's done and to what extent can be realistic or unrealistic, depending on how you're looking at it. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. It's your model, right? It's what you want to create. It's your piece of art, effectively, and you can do whatever you like with it. The video I'm going to do doesn't say what is right or wrong. It's just these are the different techniques that I talked about in the other video. You know, this is how you do them. So yeah, artistic finishes do tend to get more attention. I don't know whether they get more attention than the realistic ones. Again, it depends what you're terming as realism and how you're applying that. I think it's a quite interesting subject, you know, and it's one of those things that doesn't really have a correct answer. I mentioned this in one of my videos. It might have been that one. It's like art, right? I have my preference for art. It won't be the same as somebody else's. Now, neither of us is wrong. You know, if you like impressionism or surrealism and I like hyperrealism, that's just our preference, right? It doesn't make either of those techniques right or wrong. And I think it's the same in modeling, right? It is an expression of art, and what we choose to do is an expression of ourselves. And if other people like it, great. If other people don't, that's their choice. Hobby Time says fuselage RF dark sea grey, under wings barley grey, lower fuselage medium sea grey, painted a few of the real things. Oh, is that that sounds like a modern or modernish RAF jet. Did I miss what it was? Oh, is that an RAF Lightning? So there's a couple of things as well. I would never mix to a Humbrol colour unless I was already painting with Humbrol and wanted to match it. Right, so just as an example, you might prove me wrong. So this is the Humbrol 165 we talked about, right, which is medium sea grey satin. Now, I don't know what medium sea grey is, whether it's supposed to be modern or historic, but let's just say it's historic and go with our, there's no 165 in it, our MAP medium sea grey. We'll go with the British aviation colours of World War II. And there we go. There's our target. And there is the Humbrol colour, which is a D of 3.22 is noticeably different. And again, this is only indicative, but generally if you can see a difference here, it means it's pretty different. And it also gives you, a brief description of how it's different. So it's too dark and too yellow, as you can see there. So this is why I talk a lot about in my videos about it is the target that you're aiming for, which is the most important thing, right? You can mix an accurate colour to anything, but it's what are you matching it to? And again, that comes down to your personal choice and your research and whatever else, So if I was mixing a World War II medium sea grey, I would go with the MAP colour from the RAF Hendon book. So again, let's just mix that. On 0.1 isn't bad, and that is IGN grey with flat white, equal parts. Okay. Now, if I was painting a 1/48 scale aircraft, I might use that as the base coat, but then I would go to lighten that. And that is white and neutral grey, which is pretty much bang on. So that's the final colour I would probably finish it in, right? Because I'm putting scale effect in there. And one of the reasons I do that, because whether you believe in scale effect on a model or not is one thing, but I want to go light because I know I'm going to do some more post-finish washes and stuff, which will naturally darken it back a little bit anyway. So I naturally do try to go a little bit light, because otherwise you can end up with very dark looking models. You know, and if you wonder why, after doing all your weathering things, oh, that looks really dark and it's sort of all muddled together, it's because you've drawn the actual colour down with subsequent weathering and effects. So, but again, it's all personal choice. Okay. Yeah, and barley grey is not an official name, I believe. I think it's called something like light aircraft grey, or something along those lines, and it's often referred to as barley grey, but that's not its official BS designation. You can find that quite easily on online, those sorts of things. That sort of research. There's a lot of people that have done research into that, and modern stuff is a lot easier because the standards still exist, right? So if we were going to, in fact, let's just have a little look. So what is barley grey? Barley grey BS381C. Okay, it's camouflage grey, it's actually called. Or it was officially renamed camouflage grey. BS626. So again, if I pop onto the little paint mix here, browse the catalogue, and go with 626. There we go, camouflage grey. Select target. So you can see that is a lot lighter and more neutral. Yeah, so there we go. 2 parts, 1.47, not bad. So that's white and medium sea grey. How ironic that medium sea grey 2 and plain white is actually close to camouflage grey. I would probably go to 3 parts with that sort of match. I'm a little anal about this. Oh, and but that is scaled. That's one thing you do have to remember when you go to another scale. This doesn't auto reset, so I think that's hung. Okay, so that's 2 medium sea grey and 1 white, so it's just a touch lighter. So I would probably go with that. Yeah, so the other thing is, so what I actually did for the tonal variation video is, so I actually used, oh no, I went with my targets. Here we go. So this is US olive drab. So this is what US tanks were painted in World War II. Now that is the base colour, right? What I did for the tonal variation is this big slider across the bottom, right? I'm now taking, can you see it's getting darker? So that's -5. I can show you, look, if I go -10, you can see it's much darker. And you can see if I go way up here, see how it gets lighter. So I basically went -5. I created a mix for that. Then I went the base colour. Then I went the scaled colour. And then I went to +5 brightness. So that gave me 4 colours to use on my tonal variation. And I did that on both the structural tonal variation and the directional light tonal variation to show you the difference between those using the same paints and same paint mixes. So generally you need at least 3 different colours for tonal modulation to really work, for your eye to pick up on it as a base. And generally they shouldn't be, so if you looked, just let me go back to that screen actually. So the reason I chose those values, if I go to the -5 and no scale factor, so that's my target, right? If I calculate that paint mix, okay, that's pretty much bang on. Also, you can see how that's using clear yellow and NATO black to create a green. So most people intuitively wouldn't do that, but if you mix yellow with black, you always get green. It's just a pigment thing. So it teaches you something about how pigments work, which is, I think, a good thing. Anyway, that's an aside. So that's my my dark. Then I go to reset. Now you can see this is just without any dark applied. My DE here is 2.7. So 2.7 is noticeable. It's noticeably different, but not that much. So I'm aiming for around 2.5 DE for each tonal shift so that it creates a smooth transition and it's fairly subtle. If I went too harsh on this, you would create that checkerboard effect and you get, you know, the very black lines and then the very light, you know, almost grey centres, and it looks ridiculous. So aim for about that sort of 2.5 to 3 or 2 to 3 kind of area for your differences. So if I now let's mix that one. So we've got a nice mix there, and then I go to the scale version. Okay, 3.79. Maybe a little heavy, but with the previous one it won't be too bad. And then calculate that paint mix. And then if I go +5 on here, again 2.77. So I've got a pretty smooth transition through those 4 different colours, right, in terms of the average difference between them. Hopefully that all made sense. I'll explain it obviously on the video as well. Okay, well, 22:01, we have reached the witching hour. Thank you everybody for coming in tonight. I appreciate your time. I appreciate all the comments and engagement. Some unfortunate topics. It's a little bit sad, but at the end of the day, we are living in such a great age of modelling. There is so much choice. There is so many other stuff to go about. The Tamiya Chaffee the M24, it took me about 3 hours total build time to make. It's a sensational build. It goes together really well. It's got, as I'll say on the video, the best length and link track system I've seen anywhere. It was, I don't know, it took me 5 minutes to put an entire track on. It's like bliss, and it looks fantastic. A little bit wasted on the chassis because, of course, you can't see a lot of the track because it's got great big shields on it. But, you know, we've got things like that coming out, and, you know, how lucky are we? Revell are really doing good things. I'm really looking forward to see what Hella comes out with. So it's a bit of a lull for Airfix, which is sad, but hopefully it's just a lull, and, you know, it'll bounce back at some point. So thanks, guys, for spending the time with me. Have a great rest of your week. Enjoy the video tomorrow, and I'll see you again on Friday on Scale Modelling Live. Thanks very much. Cheers now.